Hello, I'm here to talk to you about the importance of being kind again, because kindness is something that I'm frightfully keen on. Now, I told you in a previous video that we have to be kind to each other because that is how we are kind to God. But I'm going to tell you another advantage to being kind that is less well known. Sometimes when you are kind, you think you are considering another person's feelings, and once you have been kind to that person, you find out that the person you were blessing was really yourself. Now, when I lived in New Zealand, I and my family lived across the fence from a man who was, he was quite a difficult neighbour. He was quite a difficult man to live next to. And one day, a friend of ours had been to Israel for a holiday, and he came back and he came to our place with his wife for lunch. And they were talking about how much they'd enjoyed being in Israel and how special it was. And then he said, "Oh, I have something to show you. I have this amazing thing I brought in Israel." And he pulled out a trumpet made from a ram's horn. And he said, "You know, this thing has amazing spiritual powers like you would not believe. One blast of this is enough to clean out any evil spirits from the area, because God will hear the sound of this ram's horn and he will arise and fight for you." To tell you the truth, we thought he was nutcase. We thought he was just, we were looking at him like, really? That's just crazy. How could you be educated and believe that? And then he said, "Do you want me to demonstrate?" And we're kind of looking at each other like, "Oh, this is just mad." But thank God we did not want to be unkind to him. So we said, "Oh, that would be lovely." So he went out on the porch of our house. Now, we lived quite close to the fence line of the difficult neighbour, and then on the other side of our house was a long stretch of land that no one lived on. And we assumed that he would point his ram's horn trumpet in the direction of the field where no one lived, but he didn't. He stood there and he pointed his ram's horn at the difficult neighbour, and the property. You couldn't see the neighbour's house because there were a lot of trees. And he began to blast his ram's horn. And despite telling us that only one blast was enough to clean out the area of anything unclean, he just kept blasting and blasting and blasting. And my mother and my grandmother became quite panicked, and they were trying to turn him around because they thought, "Oh, this is going to be so bad. The neighbour is not going to like this at all." Anyway, he stood as immovable as a rock and just kept blasting away until finally he stopped. And then he and his wife had to leave. So we said, "Oh, thank you for coming. It was so nice to see you again." And then he drove down the driveway, and my mother and my grandmother in particular, they were just beside themselves. They said, "Oh, the neighbour is going to be furious. He's going to be over here tomorrow. He'll be yelling and screaming. It's horrible. Oh no, oh no, oh no." But we couldn't have been unkind to him. We couldn't have been unkind to our friend. I mean, he so wanted to blast that thing, so we had to let him. Well, Monday came, and my mum and my grandma were very worried, but no neighbour came. And Tuesday came, and no neighbour came. And Wednesday came, and no neighbour came. And by now, my mum and my grandma were like, "What is going on?" Well, on Thursday, a notice went up on the front of the neighbour's property, and it said, "House for sale." And we were like, what is going on? Then, on Friday, my grandmother was in town, and she met another person who lived up that road. And they said, "Did you see that your neighbour's property is for sale?" And my grandma said, "Yes, we can't work it out." And the guy said, "Well, I heard about it. Your neighbour said to me, I've always hated that family who lives next door. But last Sunday was the final straw. I was sitting on the porch drinking my coffee when a noise, such as I have never heard in my life before, came over the fence. And it was so foul. I stood up and I said, I must leave this place." Now, let me tell you something. No properties were selling on that stretch of road at that time of year. He sold his house within a week and left the country. And we got the most lovely neighbours who were kind to people, and they loved God, and they treated their animals very well. They didn't abuse their sheep, which is always a good thing in the country, or anywhere really, because you have to be kind to animals. That's very important. And I wanted to tell you that story because sometimes we don't have enough faith to get the salvation or reward that God is trying to give us. And it's only when we're kind and we accept other people that we open ourselves up for the blessing that God can give us through someone who has more knowledge, because we thought that guy was crazy. We thought he was absolutely bonkers. But you know something? He was totally right. And the only reason we got that blessing is because we didn't want to hurt his feelings. So we let him go and blast his ram's horn. So remember that when you're at school and you see some kid that's a weirdo or considered a weirdo, because no one really is a weirdo, and people say, oh, we don't want to sit with them, oh, we don't want anything to do with them, you be the one that goes and sits with that kid. You be the one that's kind. You be the one that has the courage to say, no, I'm not excluding anyone. That person is probably a very beautiful person, because you don't know. That person might have a kindness that is so huge, and it's for you, and you're only going to get it by being kind to them first. So remember that. Be kind. You don't know what God's trying to give you through your kindness to them. Love you lots. Bye-bye.